David Hundeyin has dragged Tinubu to the United Nations Human Rights Gathering. He made a presentation and used that medium to tell the entire world that his life is at stake. Considering what has been happening, because he has been pushing so many investigative narrative, out there about Tinubu. He has made a lot of investigation. He's the one that dragged the FBI in the United States to release some of the documents they've promised that they are going to release. David Hundeyin has been on this topic around Tinubu since the election began. And he believes that they are looking for him at all costs. So he used this medium to tell the UN what is happening. And honestly, this is really a very welcome development, because he can't just be dying in silence. We all know that he's having this fear that Ghana, the government of Ghana, might want to reverse his passport. So let me allow you listen to this, and then Dr. O.
I now give the floor to Vivat International.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak at the 54th session of the UN Human Rights Council. As an investigative journalist from Nigeria, my work primarily focuses on advancing transparency and accountability in government. I have repeatedly used my journalistic platform to expose and publicize malfeasance and criminal behavior by powerful people in Nigeria, most recently the new Nigerian president, Bola Tinubu, an individual whose FBI file of over 2,500 pages is set to be released publicly for the first time next month, and who has, as a matter of public record, forfeited $460,000 to the United States government, being proceeds of heroin trafficking. Due to my journalistic work, his regime has taken extraordinary steps to silence me, including a recent attempted abduction from Ghana where I have political asylum. The Tinubu regime is currently trying to prevail on Ghana, which historically is a close ally of Nigeria, to violate the non-refoulement principle and have me return to Nigeria, where I would almost certainly face imprisonment, torture, and extrajudicial execution. To save my life and the important work that I do, I have been forced into a semi-nomadic lifestyle, rarely sleeping in one place for a prolonged period of time. In fact, it is from one of these temporary locations that I'm filming this message. Now, under Article 19 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, freedom of expression is a fundamental human right. And as a journalist, I must be able to do my work without living in fear or living on the run, simply because I'm doing my job. Thank you.
So, Doc, let's know what you've got to say about this. Can you just break it down for our viewers to understand?
Well, good one. Where David is the United Nations Human Rights Commission that deal with human rights. What can the young man do? He's making good moves. He's making his voice heard. He's raising the alarm. And I pray that the UNHR, they call it, United Nations Human HRC, whatever, will not leave him cold and dry. Why I say so is because sometimes, to be honest, United Nations looks to me like a toothless bulldog. They act the same way many times. Unless America is the United Nations. Against the UN vote, Security Council vote, President George Bush went to war in Iraq. In fact, he had gone before they started supporting. Against the UN security vote, the Security Council vote, Obama went to war in Libya. So why I'm saying it is, there are some places where UN can bite, but sometimes they just make it look like they are not interested. But I pray that David Hundeyin will also put pressure on them and make what he has done is to say, this is who I am. This is what is happening. He has said something on X that has gathered millions of views. He has made it official now to the United Nations. I pray that maybe one of the Western nations could call him over and give him what is it? What is it called? Asylum. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. They could just tell him to walk into the embassy of one of the Western nations there, Canada, United Nations, Australia, Germany, or co. And the moment they grant it to him in their embassy there, he travels in their diplomatic car to the airport and fly over to the country. I want United Nations to prove to us that indeed they are interested in the freedom and human rights in Africa. And if they do it to a man like David Hundeyin, it is a pointer to their desire for the strengthening of democracy back home. Because if they leave this young man dry and anything happens to him, they would have shut the mouth of many other journalists who can bite. And if they shut those mouths, the mess we're experiencing back home will continue. So let them prove themselves. Remember when Ken Saro-Wiwa was killed, the Commonwealth was in South Africa having their annual General Assembly in South Africa. Emeka Anyaoku, who happens to be a Nigerian, was the Secretary General of the Commonwealth then. And they warned Abacha not to kill Ken Saro-Wiwa. People were in the Shell headquarters in London demonstrating for safety of Ken Saro-Wiwa. While all these things were going on, Ken Saro-Wiwa was killed and acid poured on his body. What happened? So what I'm trying to say is this. The way the bodies like United Nations, they like to give us AIDS. They bring vaccine. They do all this and that. But when a situation like this happens, they need to step out and do something that will make those people that are chasing people like David Hundeyin know that, listen, as long as this guy is doing his job and doing it well, we will protect him. And when he's protected, other journalists will now gain boldness. And when journalists gain their boldness and do their job thoroughly, you will see that democracy will improve. That's my summary.
Doc, thank you. Honestly, you nailed it, because journalists, they've got a lot of roles to play, in sanitizing our society. And with what is happening in Nigeria, it's good that he's raising this alarm, because you could hear that Ghana has, extradited him to Nigeria, and then they will start giving all sorts of excuses why they are holding him. Look at what is happening to MFLA and Bauer. Nobody knows about them. They will just be held in detention without being held, without being charged, and all that. Honestly, they should just stop this. And you've really made a valid point that the UN, I mean, these countries, they should just come out and say, okay, David, come over to our country. We are going to protect you. I think that's just what this guy needs at the moment.
That's all.
That's what he needs. So for our viewers who are watching us, you could tweet this out. You could just post it on your website, attach or, add some of these handles that belong to governments or from different countries. They should listen to what David is saying, because I believe David is doing a good job. He's not just doing it because of Tinubu. He wants the system to be clean. If you go through all the reports that he has released, based on his investigation, most of them, all of them, I don't even think there's any that has any form of, controversy. They always come out clean. And at the end of the day, you see that what he said is true. So he's really helping our country to get better. But, the politicians will not see it that way. So I just pray that one of these countries will consider him to give him this asylum. So